Knicks and Bruises, we are back. Shout out to the chat. Yo, Black, it's time. I got the queen. As always, we continue in the lunchtime live. But guess who came along? Jeff, welcome to Knicks and Bruises. Pleasure to have you on, my brother.
The pleasure and the honor is mine, sir. I love what you do, and it's good to be able to share my lunchtime with such fine folks.
Man, we're gonna continue this conversation. You know, we ended off the Doso Sports Talk show talking about this rumor of Mitchell Robinson being in, or the Knicks being in, trade discussions with New Orleans for Mitchell Robinson and Trey Murphy the third. And yeah, we didn't really get to break it down too much, but the excitement of the possibility is that changes a lot. You know what I mean? A guy like Trey Murphy on this team, we talk about five out. We talk about what we lost in Dante DiVincenzo as far as the 3-point shooting. I think we get it right back. Not only do we get it right back, we get it right back in a guy who potentially could start. You know what I mean? With the rest of those guys. So now that when we ended just show, I said evens the playing field. if we get to add a guy like Trey Murphy, I think that puts us over the top offensively. I think we have a legit shot of being the best offensive team in the league, hands down. But yeah, let's continue this conversation, Queen. I'll start with you. I know you was excited, and
Yeah.
we didn't get to discuss it much. What's your thoughts potentially? And you could bring that question up that you ended your show with, as far as
Yeah.
Deuce McBride.
Yeah. Back when we were covering the draft, the Knicks got good on us, so we stopped covering the draft. But remember those days, Tony? We used to be doing our draft deep dives.
Draft
Um,
parties,
yeah,
Queen, in
draft party
Atlantic
in
City.
Atlantic City. Yeah. I love Trey Murphy in the draft. He left before he was off the board before the Knicks picked. I like Duarte, who's becoming somewhat of a journeyman. Um, he was off the board by the time the Knicks picked, but I love Trey Murphy the third. His ability to shoot. He's getting better in other areas of his game. He's a solid defender with a long wingspan. And to your point, he very well might start. You could start Trey Murphy the third. I mean, listen, you may feel like, listen, we got so much offense in this starting lineup. Let's bring him, off the bench so we can have some scoring, off the bench. That would be fine. But if you put him in the starting lineup, that's a true five out, right? Because he's just a much better 3-point shooter than Josh Hart is, though he's been working with a shooting coach, I hear. Um, but whether he starts or comes off the bench, that I think that would decrease or maybe even eliminate any concerns we had. Um, um, it would eliminate any concerns we had about the bench. It would just eliminate. You have him, you have McBride, you have pressure. It would eliminate any concerns we have at the bench. Now, with the bench now, as far as the backup center, we would still, have to roll with Precious and Sims. In terms of if it took, the question I asked was if to get Trey Murphy the third, and we don't know about salary matching or anything. This is just a hypothetical. If it took trading Mitchell Robinson and McBride to get Trey Murphy the third here, would we be willing to do it? I would. No knock on um, Miles McBride. I just feel like Campaign could fill in. And even if Campaign is not the shooter McBride is, Trey Murphy is. Trey Murphy, Trey Murphy is. And he would take the bulk of those minutes that McBride would have gotten anyway, right? So if we didn't include McBride in the trade, his minutes would decrease back to probably what we were talking about before, the 12 to 15 minutes behind um, Brunson. So you have to factor that in as well, that his role would probably decrease if we brought in Trey Murphy the third. This gives him an opportunity to go to, another team, have a chance, and now campaign could step in behind Brunson, who's actually a point guard and who has more playoff experience than McBride. Yes, Tom.
Well, that's exactly where I was gonna go, because I don't think it affects McBride and his minutes. If the reports are true and the Knicks see McBride as a two guard, I think his backup minutes come at the two and not at the one. If it's true with the reports of how they view Tyler Kolek, you know what I mean? I think that backup point guard is Kolek or Payne. I don't think it's McBride.
You don't think it's
I
McBride?
don't think it's McBride. I think they value McBride as a two guard. His shooting has elevated last year. I think they believe in that, and his defense is more than capable of positioning at the two. You know what I mean? So he could guard one or two. So I think his value, especially with the loss of DiVincenzo, I think they view McBride as a backup two guard, and that backup point guard is whether it goes to the veteran in Payne, or if the rookie can outwork and outprove Payne, even as a rookie. I think the backup point guard position is out of those two guys. So I believe McBride. So to answer your question, if it includes McBride, the reason I was quicker to say yes than Jeff was because if McBride is gone, that point guard position, like I said, is still, that backup point guard position is still in house. And to your point, what you mentioned earlier with Shamit, um, there's our backup too, whether it's limited minutes, reduced minutes, or not. He fills in that role. So that would be the one reason that I was quick to say yes. Not advocating for it, but if we had to include McBride, if he was the incentive piece, I would do it, because I think now that opens up that backup two spot. I think that backup one spot is open for whether it's Payne or Kolek.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So yeah, that was why I was so quick to say yes, I would do it. I know you didn't have much time to think about it, Jeff. But I don't know if your mind changed, or if you have a definitive answer. But if it had to include Deuce as well, what's your thoughts?
Well, I kind of hate to splash cold water on this idea because I do like Trey Murphy the third as a player, but just looking at the cap numbers, uh, Mitchell Robinson makes $15 million per season, and Trey Murphy the third makes about five.
5.
And so you've got a player in, a team rather in New Orleans that is capped at the first apron because of the moves that they've already made. So if you're adding Deuce's salary to that, that's 19
Yeah.
versus 5. And that really, I haven't looked at the Pelicans roster that close, but I would imagine that they're going to be looking to send out some kind of salary in that deal,
Yeah.
if that's going to happen. And we're already, in my mind, getting the best player in the deal. And so I'm not really sure what the incentive is for the Pelicans to make this trade. Like, I love it from a Knicks perspective, but I just am trying to put myself in I mean, Robinson is definitely out for 3 months. I realize they have a need at the 5 spot, but are you willing to wait half a year for a team that should be a playoff contender, at least on paper? I mean, you got a ton of talent there. Maybe it's a case of they just don't think that they can keep Trey Jones because of all the other salaries that they have, so they're looking to move them. I know the Knicks have done that in the past, but I don't know the climate in New Orleans well enough to say yes or no on that.
Right.
But
Or
I
they could
wasn't
come
overly.
they could just do Not
McBride.
that they
Yeah.
would do it, but for salary purposes, it could be McBride for Trey Murphy. But I'm not sure they would be willing
Yeah.
to trade
Yeah.
Murphy for
I
just
think
McBride.
I think
Well, we
if
can't do that, Trey.
not you say it again.
We can't do that trade. We have to send out more money than we take in because we're capped at the second
No, no,
apron.
no. We can't send out more than we take in.
Right.
So
Did I
so
say that backwards?
yeah, you said it backwards.
I'm
So so
sorry.
so if it was Mitchell Robinson, like all right, we could take Deuce off the table now. Now that we know those numbers. So, but the Mitchell Robinson thing again, and I don't know the validity of this. You know what I mean? It was a post by um Big Nick's Energy referencing the guy who actually made the comment. I'm not familiar with him, but here's my thoughts. They do need a center. They don't have one now. So whether they're waiting 3 months and having a guy in house already, or not having a guy at all, they may view Mitchell Robinson as a piece to get in now, let him rehab, get him healthy where we have him, because they don't have a center at all now. So there is that dynamic. Um, he's from New Orleans as well. Mitchell
That's true.
Robinson is, you know what I mean. So bringing a guy home, maybe that has some interest for them and him as well. And I don't know who else is on that roster. Maybe it has to be a 2-for-1. Maybe they got to. I don't know if they. Were you saying they can't send out more? Is that what you were saying?
I was saying that they're capped at the first apron, so
So they can't.
they can't exceed what their salary. So adding $10 million to their payroll is maybe not something that they're wanting or willing to do. But if you're sending us two players, like I don't know what their roster is, but let's
Yeah,
just say hypothetically they've got an $8 million guy that they are cool with parting ways with, not part of their rotation, but then it's 12 million versus 15, then you're not really, you know what I mean? They're
yeah,
far enough below the first apron in that case where they maintain some flexibility. I don't think, if in other words, if they had to absorb that whole 10 million, that eats away at most of their flexibility for a player that will be playing January 1 at the earliest.
Yeah, Herb Jones would fit better for Mitchell Robinson than Trey Murphy,
money wise.
money wise, than Trey Murphy the third. I like Herb Jones
He's
as
another
well.
one.
He doesn't have the offensive upside that a Trey Murphy.
Yeah,
Well,
but I
Trey's
like.
a 50-40-90 guy, isn't
Yeah, but he can hit the three. He's not a floor spacer though. He's not on volume, right? I would have to look and see. I don't remember Herb Jones being a volume 3 point.
No. He's definitely not. Um, but either one of those guys, I would take in a pinch, and this is coming from a Mitchell Robinson guy. You know what I mean? But I mean Herb Jones, where he brings defensively. I mean, I mean he's Deuce defensively. If you know what I mean, better than Deuce in a sense. But you know what I mean? Like he gives you that. He gives you the shooting. Um, off ball.
Mhm.
It's low volume. Like you're not gonna give him the ball and have him create. He's definitely another off ball guy. But either one of those guys, I think, puts us over the top. It makes me way more ready to take a stance of we can win it all this year. You
Mhm.
know what I mean, and figure that part out. And then shout out to Reggie Clark. If it did include Deuce or whatever the case, both of those, Mitchell Robinson and Deuce, don't discount another 3-team trade just to make it work. We're in the midst of figuring that part out with Cat. You know what I mean? I don't see it far fetched from us figuring it out again. And if that is the case, I know you got a front office show coming soon, Queen. But if that is the case, we might as well stamp this front office now. You know what I mean? If we're able to pull off,
Pull that off,
if
right?
they pull off either one of those guys or somehow both, whatever. I know I'm going crazy now, but yeah, you might as well stamp the front office right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I don't know if we want to keep going into the speculation, but let's keep it right here in the sense of, because I without this report coming out, I was already we already talked about, or we didn't talk about it, but we know the Knicks are taking calls and making calls on Mitchell Robinson. That has been reported for sure, definitively. So that being said, I guess my first question would be, what type of player, Trey Murphy aside, because he wasn't even on my list, but he would be number one right now just because the way I envision that working. But what type of player would you be looking for, or what would be the need of this team
Yeah.
if we're moving Robinson? I know, Queen, you envision Robinson and Cat potentially playing together at times once Robinson is healthy. So I know center position is on your list. But what would be a player or type of player that you would want to pursue um in giving up Mitchell Robinson to kind of solidify this team?
Another player like Mitchell Robinson that's just healthier to play with Cat. If you have, Cat showed last year that he can play with a Rudy Gobert type center, which Mitchell Robinson was, right? So a healthy Mitchell Robinson and Cat, I would love that. If the Knicks, I don't know what the salary cap, but the same players we talked about, a Nick Richards, a Kessler, somebody now who can rebound, block shots, play defense, allow Cat to play stretch four. Um, at times, though, I still believe we're at our best with Cat at the five. But still, there'll be times when you want to play him at the four and play him with, another center. So that's what I would be looking for, and somebody off the bench, just another shooter or scorer to help solidify the bench. Those are the two things I still think the Knicks need.
And is that, before I get to Jeff, and then you can answer this
Mhm.
part of the question as well, is that a and, or is that a or? So when I say that,
We both, I don't know we're gonna be able to get it.
but if you had to choose, if you have the opportunity for let's say bench depth, but it's not necessarily at the center position, or
Mhm,
you have the option of center depth
mhm,
only,
mhm.
where would you fall in that?
I would go with the bench depth and just make do with Precious and Jericho's Sims. I do want to say about Trey Murphy the third. He's only making 5 million.
We got right here. Shout
He's
out
only
to
making five
make it
million,
make sense.
and he's a restricted free agent next season. And so the Pelicans have to make a choice about whether or not they want to extend him, given their salary cap
Mm-hmm.
concerns. This is all the fallout from this new CBA. Not to change the subject. I just wanted to add some context to what. So that's um Mitchell Robinson makes more than that. But in terms of why they would want to trade him, I think is he's the restricted free agent next season.
Yeah, and obviously an extension, or whatever his next contract is going to well surpass Mitchell Robinson's current contract, and I think Mitchell Robinson has 2 years left on a descending contract, so they may
This one, I think.
one, yeah, well, this year and next year. So,
And next
but
yes.
so his contract descending may be a sticking point, something of value for the Pelicans moving forward, rather than knowing that they have to, you know, Murphy's contract is gonna go up. You know what I mean? It's gonna be a large jump from 5 million to probably well over, 15, maybe 20 or something like that, and keep going up. On the flip side for the Knicks, if you did bring a guy like that in, um, he would be a restricted free agent. So and the rookie contract, you're able, even with the cap situation, there's ramifications, but you're still able to bring him back and re-sign him. Another tidbit before I go, Josh, just a comment. He was on that roommates podcast. You know what I mean? And I don't know if I can't recall another non Nick or non former Nick player that's been on the podcast. It struck me as weird when it happened. I watched it, I enjoyed it, but I'm like, what's, you know what I mean? Why are you bringing him on? So
Right, right, right,
I'm
right.
just throwing it out there. Jeff, the floor is yours.
Well, Trey Murphy the third is a perfect archetype for the player. If you are going to trade Robinson, I would love to bring in a player like that. He's 6'8". Is great shooter. Like I said, I'm pretty sure he's a 50-40-90 guy for his career. If he's not, he's pretty close. I mean, so terrific wing defender, and at some point that you're going to have injuries to OG Anunoby. You can play him at the 3 or the 4 spot. You can there are so many things that you can do, and I do think that it would be helpful to have another guy, and from just a starting lineup perspective, if you could have Brunson, Bridges, Murphy, OG, and Cat, that is fabulous. Like, that is a great starting five. And you have Josh Hart coming off the bench there. You have Deuce McBride coming off the bench. You have, Precious Achua coming off the bench. I just, to me, that you bring in the best players that you can bring in. And that, if the salary cap circumstances dictate that you can make that kind of a move, even if you need to move Deuce to a third team to make it happen or whatever, just to hear y'all talk about it, and the more that I'm thinking about it, it makes it seem like that's something I probably would do. Just because, for multiple reasons, and I love Mitchell Robinson, my favorite Nick, longest tenured Nick, all the things, but I just don't have confidence that he's ever going to be on the court. Like, I just feel like he's one of those guys like Greg Oden, supreme talent, good player, but once those injuries pile up, and it's not just fluke injuries. You know what I mean? I think a lot of ways Julius Randle's injuries were kind of just like, I don't consider Randle an injury prone player, even though he's coming off an injury. It's strange as that sounds, but with Robinson, he got his 4-year history of missing a ton of games. I don't think he missed any games his first year, but after that, it's been a steady decline. And this is a team that's ready to win now. And if you can turn that fungible salary into a player that fits your lineup now, that you're not going to have to wait on, if whether it be at the same position or not. Like, I don't think the Knicks are overly concerned with adding another 5 with Cat into the fold. I think they're perfectly comfortable with Towns at the 5. I'm sure that they had some discussions about that with him before they added him, and so I think Precious and Jericho and whomever else that we have can fill that role. The only thing I would be worried about is if Cat got hurt. It's a possibility, but if Cat's healthy, I don't think that there's a supreme need to bring in a traditional 5. If a Walker Kessler became available, or Jalen Duren, I'm not going to turn that trade down, especially for Mitchell Robinson at this point. I don't see that happening either, but I'm just saying those are the types of players. If that did happen, I think that you make that trade without even blinking or thinking twice about it. But I think if we could have a little bit more wing depth of that caliber, like,
Mhm.
I don't think we just need to bring in a any old wing, but if you can get a wing like a Herb Jones or a Trey Murphy the third, it's hard not to do that.
Yeah, 100%. And like I said, I think that would put us over the top. I do want to piggyback off of the conversation on Dope Soul Sports. We spoke about, some positives and some concerns, some negatives. Um, the 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 center position is still a concern, because the injury history, or the recent injury history with Cat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He played like 200 and something games over the 200, I think 20 maybe, over the last 5 years. Um, that's a significant loss of time. You gotta expect him to miss some time. We gotta expect OG to miss some time. You know what I mean? God forbid it's at the same time. You know what I mean? Like,
Come
I
on.
think our most durable guys is Brunson, Deuce, Mikhail, Hart. You know what I mean? And like, I don't know, maybe Precious. I don't want to see that lineup at all this year. I don't want to, you know what I mean? By especially by necessity. You know what I mean? Because guys are out. So I do think, I keep saying no to that center position, as far as like getting a guy in, but the more I think about it, and the more I think about the possibility of these guys missing, 20 plus games, along with Mitchell Robinson obviously not being here for 3 months. Yeah, I think we kind of have to. We got to look at Cat, and we got to look at OG, and say who could who can we how can we fill the void if they're missing significant time. So back to them concerns, that would be
Right.
very high on the list. And if we're making another move, like moving Robinson, I do think we need guys that could hit those two spots for sure, and guys that have um a relatively clean bill of health. You know what I mean? Guys that don't tend to miss time with nagging injuries. So we can sustain success if both or one of those guys miss significant time.
Yeah. When I picked the bench, Tony, as you know, when you asked me to choose between the two, I totally had a brain fart about Cat's injury history, right? One season, playing more than 65 games in the past 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's a tough. That's a tough. But you can argue that with this collective bargaining agreement, your top six is going to be the strongest. There's going to be a drop off 7 through 9, and that any team won't be able to survive a um,
Significant injury.
significant injury to their best players. It's just not so that you're going to have somebody on the bench that can fill in and you not miss, and you not miss a beat.
Wayne Peterson, salute to him in the chat. He said they also extended Brandon Ingram. I can't find any reports that they did that. The last extension I think was Jose Alvarez. I see.
Mhm.
So I don't think they extend. Pardon me if I'm wrong, but I can't find it anywhere. Um, Anything you want to add on that, Jeff, or as far as
Yeah.
I know you caught the back end of the show, so of those so sports talk concerns after the trade, after the aftermath of the trades, or um just any.
Well, look at Boston. I mean, KP is kind of in a similar health situation as Towns is at best, and they don't have Al Horford anymore. He retired, if I'm not mistaken, and so that was their depth at the 5 spot. And do they have other players that can fill in a pinch? Yeah. Again, ideally he only misses 15, 10, 15, 20 games, and you just kind of live over that throughout the season, or power through it, whatever you want to say. there's no question we need him to be healthy come playoff time, especially if we're talking about battling Joel Embiid and the Sixers, or I mean, he did a really good job against Joker in the playoffs last year. And really, the on-off numbers when Cat was in the Timberwolves lineup were much better with him in the lineup without Gobert than they were with Gobert without him, as far as I understand. So, Towns had a really good year last year. And he showed a lot of the things that we want him to show. I mean, he showed that he doesn't have to be the top banana, that he can take a second star role. And those are the things that Julius Randle did also. I'm not saying that to take that away. I'm just pointing out that I think people are going to be real impressed when they see Karl Anthony Towns in a Knicks uniform. So a guy who can really play basketball at an elite level. I mean, he was Rookie of the Year and a 4-time All-Star for reasons. And then you bring him into this culture and with this talent that's surrounding him here and a role that fits his skill set pretty well. And again, you have to be lucky to win a championship. So injury luck is going to be part of this journey, but it's part of every team's journey. Like if Joel Embiid gets hurt, again, the Sixers are, I don't care how good Paul George and Tyrese Maxey are, they're not winning a championship without him. The Boston had really good injury luck for most of last year. And, and that helped carry them, to where they went.
Injury luck on both sides, opponent wise and for themselves.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Those. Yeah. Just don't get hurt, Cat. Come on now.
Another thing I discussed a few weeks ago, and it was like I was excited at the fact that we have 4 rookies that we brought in, and nobody, like, we're not relying particularly on any of them to kind of be prominent rotation players. Maybe Kolek with the with the reports that came out, but those other 3 guys, you got them on 2 ways. I mean, back into the rotation. Don't expect them to see any time. But now we lost some depth. I'm wondering. My question is: does this open up the floor for us to utilize any of these back of the rotation guys, these rookies, to kind of see the floor or potentially, make the rotation?
I don't really think so. I mean, it depends which guys we're talking about. But the rookies, Kolek maybe, but again, you've got Landry Shamet, who's a good guard. And I think it speaks volumes that they kept him over Mook Morris, and obviously they sent out Keita Bates-Diop, or they are sending out Diop in this deal. So I'm real high on Kolek. I just feel like he may be one of those players that you can't keep out of the rotation just because he proves his quality so much. The other guys, McCullough, is he even healthy yet? I mean, I don't know, and I'm not going to mention the other guy because we have a rule on the other show. We don't talk about guys who for more minutes than what they're going to see on the floor. So
I like that rule. I like that rule.
He was pretty adamant about that. We had a 25-minute discussion on him on the last show, I think. So I'm going to leave that one alone. I think, but I do think that you'll see. I think it is helpful for campaign, and I think it's one of the reasons that campaign was brought in here. And also as I love the point that you made, Tony, about him, really being the backup one. Because I don't think the Knicks have ever really considered Deuce to be a 1. I think they've always considered him to be a backup 2. And I think he has an opportunity for an expanded role with DiVincenzo not here. So maybe he, pardon the pun, but takes the ball and runs with it and shows that he can lead the second unit and do those things in addition to the defense and the shooting. Maybe he does that, but that's not I'm not going to attribute that to him until I've seen that he can do that in pressure situations, because we're going to be in high leverage games, and if you're asking me who I'm more comfortable with running the offense, Deuce or Cam, if we need in the backup, I'm going to say Cam,
Mm-hmm.
just because that's more of his game. So, but I think it does. I think guys like Payne and Shamit definitely have some opportunities to get into the rotation. Tibbs is an anti-rookie. I don't think he's going to be, just where these guys were picked and what their skill sets are. I don't think he's going to be like looking at these guys and saying, "Yeah, I definitely have to play these
Oh
guys."
yeah, there's no obligation at all. Um, so to answer my own question, I think for the rookies, obviously Tyler would be first on my list as potentially having an opportunity. After that, it probably would be Dadier at some point if you know OG misses some time. Um, I could see him having the opportunity to kind of get some spot minutes at some point down the season. But yeah, I think those veterans were brought in because they're veterans, because they can come in and play
Right.
immediately. So I think if Tyler doesn't beat out Payne, obviously Payne is more than capable of playing backup point. Shamit, I think that decision was made based off the fact that they had to include DiVincenzo. Like to your point, Queen, he could come in and fill that role as a volume 3-point shooter, efficient 3-point shooter. So I see Shamit spot on his team kind of being solidified at this point, barring no future moves. I wouldn't be mad if they could bring Mook Morris back. I know they had to waive him to make this trade, but I did read that it's still on the table if he doesn't sign elsewhere that we could bring him back once the dust has settled, once all the paperwork is finalized. So I wouldn't mind having Mook come back and kind of solidify that the bench. That's one of our concerns now is the depth. We went from one of the deepest teams in the league, but Tibbs having to figure out how he's going to find minutes to utilize the depth,
Right.
and now our depth has taken a little bit of a hit. But you could also argue it cleaned itself up a little bit as well. You know what I mean? So it's less things for Tibbs to have to figure out now, as far as like he had to find those minutes for DiVincenzo. Like that is no way around it. You know what I mean? Hart would have been fine either way, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, because he's a little bit more flexible in where you can put him, who you could put him around. Um So I thought Hart was gonna be fine as far as the minutes he gets because of what he brings,
Right.
especially on that rebounding, offensive rebounding and pace perspective. Um and being able to play multiple positions, which Devo was kind of stuck at that 2 spot. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't have that luxury of playing the one. Like we didn't see that. You know what I mean? He doesn't have that luxury of kind of stepping up into the 3 role, the small forward spot. So he was stuck where he was, which limits what I thought would be flexibility on finding minutes for him.
Yeah. I will say this though, Shamit and Deuce in that well, first of all, I wasn't even thinking about when I was thinking about the bench. I was thinking Deuce Precious. I had forgot all about Shamit. Um, Not necessarily forgot about him, but you know, now Payne, Shamit, Deuce, um, Precious, it doesn't seem as bad, as I thought it was. But this is the thing. If you're playing Deuce at the 2, Shamit also plays the 2. Shamit is only 6'4". He's not a 3. And so then the question becomes, even before the trade, when you had Deuce in that lineup, the thought was you would run Bridges with that second unit. So even though McBride was technically the point guard, that it would really be Bridges who would be running the show and McBride would be playing off ball. The question is, are we better with Payne at the one, McBride at the two, and Shamit basically being situational?
Situation.
Or are we better with McBride at the one, Shamit at the two, and then still running Bridges with that second unit with now shooters with him in McBride and Shamit and Payne being situational?
This is what I will say for Kolick.
Mm-hmm.
If Kolick can be equal as far as defensively as Shamit, or better defensively than Shamit, which isn't necessarily a hard goal to accomplish. Like, just if he just is not worse than Shamit defensively, I go with either Tyler Kolek or Campaign next to Deuce,
Mm-hmm.
because we know what Deuce is as a defender, and we saw what Deuce can do offensively once he found his rhythm. Once he found, like, I think what we saw last year from Deuce is like that's the standard moving forward. You know what I mean? Like, he found his role, he found his niche. So I would go with Deuce at the two, because he can guard up, he can guard down, and he was an adequate shooter, and improving last year. So if he can continue to improve offensively, which there's no doubt in my mind, he will sustain, if not get better at. I would go with Deuce at the backup two spot. I go with whoever beats the other one out, as far as Tyler and Cam at the backup one, and
Mm-hmm.
Shamit as situational. Unless, like you said, he starts, which I can't find it now, but somebody else in the chat said it too. So your hot take might end up, cooling down. It might not be so hot, as time goes on. Because I seen it on your show too. A couple people
Mm-hmm.
saying they could see Shamit starting. So
But he
and
can't start and be. And that's a big swing.
it, it
Potential starter, potential situational.
it is, but we've seen that from Tibbs before.
Mhm.
We've seen Tibbs put somebody in the starting unit, but if they're not starting, we they out the rotation. We've seen it with Kemba. We've seen it with Fournier.
That is true.
You know
That
what I mean? So it's really about how Tibbs sees them. So I know it's even then I didn't understand it. That didn't make sense to me. But you know what I mean? We seen it from him. So I don't put it past him as that being some way a possibility, as rare as it is.
Well, this may be a hot take, but I could see Deuce as the starter at the two and play Bridges at the three and OG at the four, and Josh Hart gets starters minutes and it closes. I could I could absolutely see that being the way that this team, once it settles in and everything, because Deuce is just a better shooter than Josh Hart. He's consistent with that. He's a good defender. I think Bridges is more a natural three than a two anyway. I think he can play the two, he can guard the two, but I think the three is his more natural position. And OG at the four is fine, and Cat at the five is. I just think that lineup has a lot of balance. It's a little bit tougher to guard, maybe, because Deuce can just sit in the corner and just be a sniper. Deuce is just a better player than Shamit at this point in their careers, in my opinion. So, if you're gonna start someone other than Hart, I think it's Deuce. Whether Thibodeau will do that or not is remains to be seen. But I actually really like the Deuce in the starting lineup and Josh Hart getting the closing minutes construction for this roster.
Yeah, I don't like Deuce. I don't like a Brunson Deuce backup. I think it's just too short. To me it's just too. um, too small.
I like optically, I feel the same way, or I felt the same way. But once I seen it, and we seen it a lot last year, the Brunson Deuce backcourt, I liked what it looked like. I thought it was and the numbers say it was super effective and efficient. So that I, that's the only reason. Because I agree with you. I think I text you and send the same thing. I could see Deuce in that starting lineup. Next to Brunson with McCall and OG. It is small though. It definitely is small, and there will be teams that you just can't start that lineup against. But it's back to having us having some flexibility still to be able to choose. But
Yeah,
because the question is if McCall's at the 2, if OG's at the 3, who's at that 4th spot with Randall going? So are we?
I like Hart at the
You
4.
like
I
Hart?
don't Hart.
You like Hart starting?
Yeah, even though McBride is undersized at the 2, I still like Hart undersized at the
At
4
the
because
4.
he's shown that he could rebound. You know,
See,
with the rest of them. And then
I,
now, where's the shooting on the coming off the bench? Josh
I
Hart.
I don't disagree with you, but I actually like. I just like Hart's energy, change of pace, coming from the bench into that. You know what I mean? Into the game. I like that dynamic. Um, but again, these are tips issues, and then I question. It's like, damn. So if that's the case, do I want to start Precious next to you know what I mean?
I saw that in the chat too.
So
I think
it's
that just, ooh, I think that takes away our 5 out with him. But when you think about Josh Hart, but at least Josh Hart will take a 3. Like he's a better 3-point shooter than Precious, who I believe has been working on it also.
because
Um,
yeah, that's the
yeah,
question right now. Like
yeah,
who it's either start Deuce, you know what I mean? Move McCall, move OG up. It's either start Precious, keep McCall and OG, and then you know what I mean? As a now we got 6'8", 6'8", 6'8" across the board. Um, or start Josh Hart wherever it is. Like you might consider him. You might consider OG at the 4 still,
right.
and McCall, and like it don't matter. OG. I mean, when Hart's in the game, I don't even think he has a position. He's just on the floor doing what he does. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah,
mean, I can see it going any one of those ways. To be honest, I could see Josh Hart starting alongside those guys. I could see Precious starting alongside those guys, and I could see Deuce. Um, Deuce is the only one that gives us, and to your point, Shamit, that gives us a complete 5 out. You know what I mean? 5 3-point threats on the floor, as the starting unit. So that's gonna be interesting. You know what I mean? Who gets that starting spot? Whether it's Shamit, Deuce, Precious, Hart,
all right. That's a good
and
point.
and then
Maybe we're not as shallow as we thought we were. If we have 4, if we have 4 options that that could start.
but who you start determines how your bench looks too. So
Yeah,
so you know what I mean? So that's the dynamic.
right.
You may want to keep somebody from starting just to have that bench punch. You know what I mean?
Not that they
So
couldn't start, but
yeah.
it helps to. But yeah, that's a great point. That's a
So
good.
so it's a bunch of different ways we could go with that. You guys add anything? I'm just running through these comments to see if I want to highlight anything.
Let's
Well,
see.
I think in some ways we're choosing between a Porsche and a Lamborghini here. I think, and what I mean by that is I think that the choices are good, and
Right.
it's just which one do you want to go with? I mean, it comes down to personal preference as much as it is like, oh, this. It's not like either one is necessarily a bad basketball decision, but
Right.
it's just what what suits the moment better. If we're playing a team that runs smaller, maybe that's a time where we can play Deuce in the starting five and get away with it. If we're playing a team that's bigger, maybe we want to play Precious. If we're playing a team that's kind of in the middle, maybe we want to play Hart. You know, I
Point.
think I think we're in a situation where we can have four legitimate 3-point threats at on the court all the time if we choose to. And so like five is great, but having four, not every team can say that, And so again, we don't need perfect to be the enemy of the good. I say that a lot, but there's just a lot of versatility. There's a lot of different ways that you can go. And guess what? I think in the modern NBA, you need to have that versatility and flexibility. You need to be able to play fast and play slow and play big and play small because, in an 82 game season, that's what it is. Every night is a different matchup. It's a different personality. And then the key, though, is going to be when we get to the playoffs, how does that rotation solidify itself and iron itself out? And the only way we see that is to see how those lineups and units mesh together. Maybe Deuce as a starter is a disaster. Who knows? We'll see what it looks like. But over the course of the season with injuries and putting the guys in the different spots, I think we'll have a good idea come playoff time that this is the rotation that we want to go with. Probably after 25 games, I would guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say that training camp and preseason will help sort that out. And then obviously once the season gets underway, that's going to further help us um, sort it out. And also, it's not even going to be about the individual player. It's going to be about how a group of players play together. That's what's going to help the decision. And even if Deuce starts coming out to start the season, or Shamit to start the season, or Precious, that doesn't mean that's going to be the case all the way through the season. Like he's always, assessing the roster for how it plays, and usually takes about 20 games. He's not adverse to making a change in a lineup because he feels like, this team would play better. And not just that he thinks they will, he has the data because they've played together. Even if they didn't start together, they've played so many possessions together through the course of a game. And once he aggregates enough data, he can say, you know what? Maybe we can think about making a change and starting this team. So the Knicks do have options, and each one of them bring pluses and minuses. We could talk about Deuce lack of height at the two position. That's the same, issue with Josh Hart, with Precious. We could talk about the lack of shooting with Shamit. I would have to see him to know what the deficiencies are. She shoots well when he's on a good team. I don't have any sense of him defensively though.
All right. Um, Shout out to the chat, man. Hit that like button for me. Let's get the likes to match the people in the chat. That'll be dope. Before we get out of here, because I just got a call, I gotta bring my daughter some food. So um shout out to my cat. Um who has is there a dark horse on this team now? Um I mean, we talk about we know definitely four of the starters. So whether Josh Hart starts or Deuce starts or Precious starts, let's not include those three because I think that's our top seven as of right now. Outside of the top seven, is there a guy currently on this team that you think could have a surprise impact on this team?
Tyler Kolek. Like if there's a guy who's going to be a surprise impact, it's going to be because this rookie comes in and he's ready to go right away, and he just he feels the game. He can he's able to outperform Shamit and campaign in preseason and in camp, and just shows that the moment's not too big for him and that he's ready to take 10, 15 minutes right off the bat and knock down big time shots and be a positive contributor. That would be my pick.
If he wasn't a rookie, that would be my pick too. Um, I'm going with Shamit. I know. I'm on this Shamit kick. I'm on this Shamit kick. I just think we're gonna get more out of him than we think. That's all I'm saying. I don't know if he takes the Devo leap, but I think we get a little bit more out of him than we think. That's all I'm saying.
Oh man, that's tough between those two. I was going to go Kolick as well, but he has to beat out Campaign, right? He has to beat out Deuce McBride in a sense. The path for Shamit is there. You know what I mean? With even in a minimal role, the path is there for him to kind of to be a dark horse. So that is a good one. I can see it, and I can see Tyler as well. And I don't know if there's anyone else that has the path per se. Maybe I mean yeah, cause but I'm gonna go with Precious. Oh wait, I said I can't use them, right? I can't use the top
Yeah,
seven.
top seven. Yeah.
Okay,
Go with the dark horse.
uh it's
Slim
tough.
pickings. Slim pickings.
Fuck it. I'll go with Cam. Just to like we have an opportunity for any one of these guys to kind of be a dark horse, right? Cam ain't Cam ain't going away easy. You know, he ain't trying to lose whatever potential role he has to a rookie. You know what I mean? You talk about a guy who's been in the league, out the league, back in the league, so he knows what any opportunity means as far as like you gotta capitalize on your opportunity because he knows from firsthand experience you could be out the league in in a heartbeat. So I'm gonna go with Cam. I'm gonna say the pain he's endured in the past is gonna have him fighting to kind of make an impact and so yeah, I'll go with Cam in that aspect.
But I think that it sheds an interesting light on with the trade and the players that were selected. That is the window of opportunity that opened up when DiVincenzo was shipped out to Minnesota. You have this
Right.
swath of minutes, and we assume that Deuce is going to get a good portion of those, but in the ones that it's not Deuce, you're going to see one of these three guys step into that role and shine, because if they don't shine, one of the other two is going to take his place. So I think that those three are the ones who had the best opportunity, and it will be cream rise to the top. Whichever the three shows out the best will be proven as that dark horse.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
I got a hot take before I go and a comment before I go. Comment: the last two bigs, all-star bigs that Minnesota traded away, they got traded into championships.
Ooh.
Kevin Love and Kevin Garnett.
His name ain't Kevin though. It's
We
Hey,
can change his name to Kevin.
hey,
That's fine.
we gonna call him.
Almost close enough to Kevin.
It begins with a K, and if we have to, we'll call him Carl Kevin Anthony Towns. Uh, my hot take is Carl Anthony Towns breaks the 3-point record for the Knicks. So it's gonna be a third consecutive 3-point record broken, and this time it'll be by Towns. But this time we're not gonna have somebody break the record and then get traded. like
right.
like
That's
Fournier.
and breaking the
Yeah,
record.
maybe we don't want him to break the record. Maybe that.
But I think that's it. Let me go get my daughter some food before her next class. Great turnout tonight. Appreciate you guys in the chat. Your Black is Time Queen. Appreciate you as well. I might jump on a little bit later after I deep dive into this media day and see if we get any
Sound bites.
sound bites or anything. You know, so just keep a, you know, if you're not subscribed, subscribe, hit that notification bell in case I'm on tonight. I might have some more, you know,
Let me know. I'm free this evening.
I definitely will. It won't be too late because I gotta open in the morning. But Jeff, man, pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so
Um,
much for allowing me to be a guest. It was a lot
oh,
of fun.
listen, open invitation. If you down with Dope Soul Sports Talk, then it's an open invitation to Knicks and Bruises whenever I'm on. If you see I'm on and you gotta go hit up Queen real quick and be the middleman, Queen, you got the approval.
Yeah,
You know
appreciate
what I mean? You got the approval to send anybody over. But yeah, appreciate you guys. Great show. Shout out to the chat. Yo, Black is time. Let's go Knicks. Let's get this ring.
it for sure.